My father only had one answer to every question. How are you? I'm fine. He said it when he came home late at night. He said it when his hands shook while tying his shoes. He said it even when his smile looked forced. Growing up, I thought I'm fine and strong. It meant dependable. It meant nothing could break him. My father was the kind of man who believed problems were meant to be carried quietly. He worked long hours, rarely took days off, and never talked about stress. If something hurt, he ignored it. If something worried him, he buried it deep. Our house was calm on the surface. Bills got paid. Food stayed on the table. We didn't talk about emotions much, but I assumed that was normal. Whenever my mother asked him to rest, he waved it off. I'll relax later. Later always seemed available to him. He woke up before sunrise every day. I remember hearing his alarm when the house was still dark. By the time I woke up, he was already gone. At night, I'd hear the door open quietly, followed by the sound of him sitting down heavily, like gravity was finally catching up to him. If I asked how work was, he smiled and said, "Same as always." If I asked if he was tired, he laughed, "Just a little, I'm fine." As a kid, I admired him for that. I thought real men didn't complain. I thought silence was strength. I didn't realize that silence can also be a warning. There were small signs, even back then. He rubbed his chest sometimes while watching TV. He paused before standing up, like his body needed a moment to catch up. But whenever we noticed, he brushed it off. Nothing to worry about. We believed him because parents are supposed to be okay, because "I'm fine" sounded convincing, because none of us wanted to imagine otherwise. As I grew older, the signs became harder to ignore. My father's hair turned gray faster than it should have. His shoulders curved forward. His energy disappeared quietly, without announcement. Still, his routine never changed. Work came first, rest came later. Doctor appointments were postponed. Vacation days weren't unused. Sleep was treated like a luxury. When my mother asked him to slow down, he smiled and said, "Once things settled down." Things never settled down. I came home from college one weekend and noticed he'd lost weight. His face looked thinner, sharper. When I mentioned it, he laughed. "You kids worrying too much." One evening, I found him sitting alone in the garage, just staring ahead. When he noticed me, he straightened up quickly, like he'd been caught doing something wrong. "Everything okay?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, I'm fine." That was when I started to understand that his words weren't meant to inform us. They were meant to protect us. He believed that as long as he stayed strong, the family would stay stable. He believed admitting weakness would create fear, so he carried everything alone: stress, pain, exhaustion, like it was his responsibility. I learned later that his job had become more demanding: deadlines, pressure, fear of losing income. But he never brought that stress home. Instead, he brought silence. There were nights I heard him coughing in his room, mornings when he sat quietly at the table, lost in thought. But when anyone asked, the answer was always the same: "I'm fine." The phrase stopped sounding reassuring. It started sounding heavy. One day, my mother finally insisted he see a doctor. He agreed, but only to calm her down. When he came back, he said everything was okay. "They just told me to rest more," he said. He didn't rest. Life kept moving. I moved forward with my own plans, trusting that my father would always be there, solid, unbreakable, fine. I didn't know how close we were to the edge. The call came on an ordinary day. No warning, no preparation. My father had collapsed at work. Hospitals replaced routines. Machines replaced conversation. The man who carried everything suddenly couldn't stand on his own. When I saw him in that bed, smaller and quieter than I'd ever seen him, something inside me broke. He opened his eyes slowly and looked at me. For the first time in my life, he didn't say he was fine. Instead, he whispered. I think I ignored it too long. That moment replayed in my head for weeks. Not because he collapsed, but because he finally admitted the truth. Recovery was slow, painful, humbling. He hated needing help, hated resting, hated feeling weak, but his body had made the decision for him. One evening, While sitting together in silence, he spoke again. I didn't want you to worry, he said. I thought being strong meant not saying anything. That's when I realized how wrong we both were. Strength isn't pretending nothing hurts. Strength is knowing when to speak. Today, whenever someone says I'm fine, I listen differently, because sometimes fine means tired. Sometimes it means scared. Sometimes it means breaking quietly. This story isn't about fear. It's about awareness. If someone you love always says they're fine, ask again, look closer, stay present, because silence doesn't mean peace. And being fine shouldn't cost someone their future.